Let's change gears now and cast our minds back to President Muhammadu Buhari's official visit to Seoul, South Korea. According to the federal government, the main purpose of this visit was to participate in a World Health Organization summit focusing on vaccines. But on the sidelines, a series of key high-level business discourse took place as part of efforts to expand the budding trade relationship between both nations, which as of June this year is valued at over $1.5 billion US. Well, for more on this, I'm now being joined by Ambassador Akinremi Bolaji, the Director of Economic Trade and Investment at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Your Excellency, Ambassador Akinremi Bolaji, thank you so much for joining me on Channel's Business Global. Nigeria has suddenly become South Korea's largest trading partner in Africa, with trade volumes, according to the data that I just looked at, hitting a reported $1.5 billion US as at June 2022. What is the mutual interest between both countries?
Yeah, thank you so much, first and foremost, Juliana. And thank you, channels, for having me this morning. Indeed, Nigeria and South Korea have come a long way. We both have a history of subjugation and freedom, and we've been trading partners for decades. And Nigeria, being the largest economy in Africa, is also the largest Africa trading partner with South Korea. And this is because Nigeria is trying to diversify its economy, and South Korea is also trying to increase in services and other automobile, electronics, and other activities into the Nigerian economy. So we both have mutual interest of development and growth, of collaboration, even beyond trade, on other fora, coming together, even in the multilateral setting, and our bilateral relations are very extremely cordial.
Thank you for that, Your Excellency, because I know there was some confusion within Nigeria about why the president was in South Korea. And I think that's because the headline said it was for a World Health Organization event at a time when there is so much turmoil within the borders, particularly when it comes to climate change and the recent flooding. But I know, and I have seen, that you were at several of these key sideline business meetings. But it's not just South Korea, is it, that Nigeria has interest in? Nigeria has interest in the whole of the Asia-Pacific region. China, I've got to say, there are a few observers that are not so sure of that relationship. Yes, there has been a lot of development finance, but some of those contracts can be quite opaque. Apart from China and South Korea, Your Excellency, where else are Nigeria doing great business transactions in?
Well, thank you so much. Mr. President went essentially to South Korea for the World Health matter on vaccines and all the rest. But it was a mixture of so many other things. It provided a great opportunity while it was in Korea, in South Korea. Expression of interest was signed between NNPC and Daewoo for rehabilitation of the Port Harcourt refinery and Kaduna refinery. So you can see that it was also a bilateral matter becoming an official or a walking visit. Essentially, it was a mixture of all of this. So it was quite rewarding for Mr. President to have personally attended that event. Now, talking about finance and development finance, of course, China has been a tremendous partner with Nigeria, like with many African country, you know, of China-Africa relations. There are a lot of inspiration in relating with countries like China, because if they could do it, we could do it. And we have this understanding of a more relaxed conditions and conditionalities in terms of loans and support. And you can see that China is forthcoming in terms of infrastructure in Nigeria. So in terms of financing, It is far more humane, far more accommodating, far more friendly, and we are glad to have that relations with them. Now, speaking about other countries in Southeast Asia, in Asia and Pacific, that is actually uh, very interesting that Nigeria has embassy in almost all the Southeast Asia countries. I was heading one in Singapore, and in Vietnam, in Malaysia, in Indonesia, in Thailand, we have missions. And speaking about the Pacific, in Australia, we've got overseas New Zealand, Papua New Guinea. We have historical link with these countries. Speaking about South Asia, India, talking about Korea, we have Japan and almost all the Asian countries. The Asian tigers have become our friends up to today because we have a lot to learn from them. And as a country that is aspiring to bring a lot of its people out of poverty and also to increase its visibility globally and economic well-being of its people, you have to go along with countries that are doing well. You agree with me that countries of Southeast Asia and Asia in general have actually demonstrated their will and their readiness to come out of poverty. And today, they've been able to have mastery over technology in a lot of areas that Nigeria could benefit from. And so if you look at Nigeria and, for example, Indonesia, we've just had a trade and investment forum between Nigeria and Indonesia, in which the vice president was gave the keynote address. We have a trade balance of about 2 billion as that's the close of 2021. And we are expecting that by the close of 2022 to be about 3 billion. And by 2024, we are aspiring to about 4 billion. Hardly do we have other countries where we have such, even in Africa. So as we are aspiring to reach out to our fellow African countries in preparation for AfTA, of course, Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement has kicked off. And we are also preparing to ensure that Nigeria is not just a receiving country of goods produced in other climes outside of Africa and dumped on Nigeria. We must prepare ourselves into production. We must prepare ourselves to ensure that we have access to required requisite technology, and so that we can develop our agro-allied industry, and so that our services also can be acceptable in those countries. So, for example, Indonesia now, we've had a lot of companies that are operating in Nigeria. Many more are coming. They've been bringing their goods to Nigeria, like Mayura, which has been in Nigeria for over 10 years. But now they are going to start producing on Nigerian soil. Indonesia also has, with their company Pertamina, has a lot of dealings with us on oil and gas, just like South Korea. And so when you look at what Nigeria has, some of these countries don't have it. And what those countries have, Nigerians need it.
Yes.
And so it goes for each other. We have a lot of ground to collaborate. We have a lot of grounds to cooperate and develop together. So in terms of fulfilling our aspiration, we find it very easy and very appropriate to collaborate with Asian countries and countries of the Pacific. But that does not affect or reduce our working, our collaboration with Western countries.
Yes.
And as you have seen, because of the recent geopolitical tension in Europe, we have seen a lot of effort to get Nigeria gas, and also Nigeria is working on 2 lines at the same time, the Nigeria-Morocco and the Nigeria-Algeria pipeline.
Yes.
And these are going to become reality very soon.
Yes, Your Excellency, thank you so much for that thorough assessment of relations between Nigeria and Southeast Asia, Asia Pacific, because we know that the tectonic plates of the world order is shifting, and that is a very important, crucial region, particularly for Britain in post-Brexit. I think, these conversations are incredibly important because without them and without the information, wild misinformation, disinformation and fake news is spread about what our president is doing, jet setting, when actually, these are crucial discussions and crucial relationships that need to be cultivated, and that have been cultivated by diplomats such as yourself who have headed up missions in these regions. We have run out of time, which is such a shame because we could go on and on. But for now, Your Excellency, Ambassador Akinremi Bolaji, the Director of Economic Trade and Investment at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Thank you so much for your time and your sound wisdom today.